But the Chinese citizens are now being given warnings by their government saying that not to travel to Japan, and Japan is pissed because Japanese travel-related business stocks have crashed.
In just a few days, multiple Chinese government departments issued warnings to their citizens to avoid traveling to Japan, avoid studying in Japan. 2 Japanese films that were scheduled to hit the cinemas in China got cancelled.
Japan's prime minister just threatened China over Taiwan. Big mistake. Here's how Beijing is about to bring Tokyo's economy to its knees. And the data proves it.
Chinese tourists have canceled flights to Japan, and Japanese hotels have reported last-minute changes. Why is this happening? Because China's warning its citizens against traveling here after Japan's prime minister made comments that a Chinese attack on Taiwan could prompt a Japanese military response. A travel warning is a big deal because far more Chinese tourists come to Japan every year than visitors from any other country.
I think Japan is safe. It's not about it's safe or not. It's about that you've been very unkind to China. And during these days of touring in Japan, we kind of aware that some Japanese are not very kind to us.
来てくださいとかじゃなくて、日本はいつでもね、ウェルカムでしょ。で、それは
In the first 9 months of the year, nearly 7.5 million travelers from China made the trip to Japan. In that time, Chinese tourists spent about 1.6 trillion yen, or $10.3 billion. So if Chinese visitors do decide to go elsewhere, Japan's tourism industry could find itself severely short of change.
So, Chinese tourists are canceling trips to Japan. Let's break down what that really means. In 2024, Chinese visitors dropped a cool $11.1 billion in Japan. That's not just short of change. That's a gaping hole in their tourism sector, which makes up 7% of their GDP. And with tourism stocks already plunging, this is just the first domino. Beijing isn't just suggesting its citizens go elsewhere, it's weaponizing their wallets. Okay, let's check out some comments. So has Japan apologized for the war crimes yet? Japan hate is not enough. Went to Japan recently and is overhyped, overrated, and underhated. Japanese say that Chinese are impolite towards Japanese diplomats. Let's take a look at how Japan treated Chinese diplomats. In 1928, there was no war between China and Japan. The KMT government, now in Taiwan, was attempting to unify China, while the Japanese supported some other China warlords to prevent the KMT from unifying China. The person in the right photo was named Tai Gongshi. He was ordered by Chiang Kai-shek to go to Jinan for diplomatic negotiations with the Japanese. The Japanese brutally killed him by cutting off his nose, ears, and eyes, as well as his 16 followers. Now Japanese diplomats have at least returned to Japan in their entirety.
Japan's prime minister really pissed China off this time. Her remarks sent China-Japan relations to a new low point. In just a few days, multiple Chinese government departments issued warnings to their citizens to avoid traveling to Japan, avoid studying in Japan. 2 Japanese films that were scheduled to hit the cinemas in China got cancelled. China's diplomat did not meet Japan's counterparts at the G20 meeting. Basically, China is sending the strongest warnings to Japan. So what happened? Because a few days ago, Japan's Prime Minister Sanya Takachi said in Japan's parliament that they could use their military to intervene in any conflict that might occur in the Taiwan Strait. That crossed China's red line. Despite some Western forces always trying to create conflicts between the Chinese mainland and the Taiwan island and stoked separatism in Taiwan, no politicians in office would dare to make such a comment because their governments in fact agree that Taiwan is part of China. That's the foundation for their diplomatic relations with China. The US and China signed 3 communiques to acknowledge that. Well, you could argue that these countries use strategic ambiguity to maintain relations with both the Chinese mainland and Taiwan island, but no high-level politicians in office would dare to say Taiwan is a country publicly, because it is not. No one will publicly say they would arm Taiwan island for any conflicts. But Takachi, as the current head of state of Japan, said it. Very immature diplomatic behavior. The US didn't, Australia and Canada didn't. Maybe that's why they pushed Japan off the cliff. Let Takachi do the dirty work. You may ask, why is China so angry? Considering the past that Japan colonized Taiwan island, committed multiple massacres in the Chinese mainland during its 14 years of invasion, Takachi's remarks not only interfere with China's domestic affairs, but it is also a sign of awakening far-right forces, and it is a sign of a potential war. We'll keep you updated on world news, so subscribe.
She's right, this is a massive escalation. But it's not just about tourism. China is Japan's largest trading partner. We're talking over $124 billion in Japanese exports in 2024 alone. That's 17.6% of their entire export economy. When China gets pissed off, it's not just diplomatic cold shoulders. It's cancelled film releases, suspended seafood imports, and the direct threat to that massive trade flow. Japan's economy, already facing a 1.8% annualized contraction in Q3 of 2025, can't afford this. And here are some comments. Japan is basically a USA colony. The world stands with China.
This just in, Japan is really pissed off with China because they gave a travel warning. So the Chinese citizens are now being given warnings by their government saying that not to travel to Japan. And Japan is pissed because Japanese travel related business stocks have crashed. And the Japanese government has retaliated, saying that it is unreasonable for China to state such warnings as it is safe in Japan. And this tit for tat is just getting worse and worse. And on top of that, a lot of Chinese universities are stopping their international students from traveling and doing study-related trips to Japan. This is a massive industry that Japan just lost.
He's seeing the immediate fallout, but it goes deeper. This is more than just a tit for tat. Japan is in a vulnerable position. They still rely on China for 60% of their rare earth imports, the critical materials that power their entire tech and auto industries. We saw what happened in 2010 when China cut them off. Now, with an already stagnant economy that's been in the lost decade since the 90s, poking the dragon is economic suicide. And now for comments. Japan has evil intentions towards China and the rest of Asia. China has been waiting for 80 years for Japan to start a war with China again. Honestly, what did they expect? This isn't 1937, LOL. China is levels above Japan in economic warfare.
Meanwhile, Japan's warning its citizens to use safety precautions and avoid crowded places in China. Japan and China are in a growing dispute over Taiwan right now, and now Chinese state media says the releases of two popular Japanese films have been postponed in China. Foreign correspondent Britt Clennett has the latest. Hi, Britt.
Diane, China and Japan very much ratcheting up the rhetoric again. Their heated diplomatic spat escalating after the Japanese Prime Minister's public comments suggesting that Tokyo could be forced to take military action if China attacked Taiwan. Now, Japan now warning its citizens in China to step up safety precautions and avoid crowded places, while China warned against Chinese visiting Japan, postponed the release of two Japanese films in the country. China's propaganda machine also on overdrive now, while China has warned that Japan would face a crushing military defeat if it intervened militarily in Taiwan. Now, a senior Japan met his counterpart in Beijing on Tuesday, but it's not yet clear if there was any breakthrough in cooling down the temperature. China's foreign ministry today said it warned PM Sane Takaichi to retract the erroneous remarks. The exchange of barbs beginning when Prime Minister Takaichi told the Japanese parliament that any hypothetical Chinese attack on Taiwan could be viewed as a, quote, survival threatening situation for Japan, an official designation that could trigger a military response. Now, Beijing saw this statement as a challenge on its claim over sovereignty over self-ruled Taiwan. Now, this is one of the biggest fallouts in Sino-Japanese relations in recent years, reopening deep-rooted historical rifts and contested territory too. On Sunday, Chinese Coast Guard ships sailed through waters around a group of East China Sea islands claimed by both countries. Japan Coast Guard said it drove the Chinese ships away. Diane?
Yeah, China is using a big chunk of their playbook. Travel warnings, film cancellation, seafood bans. It's a coordinated economic squeeze. And Japan's response? Warning its citizens in China to be careful. That's like bringing a knife to a gunfight. While Japan is talking about safety precautions, China is systematically targeting the pillars of their economy. It's a calculated display of economic power, and Japan is on the losing end. And now for comments. China, finally we get to avenge those who died in World War II. US must be happy about Japan's obedience. Japan keeps pretending its Taiwan equals survival threat rhetoric is just normal diplomacy, but the world already wrote the rules for them in 1945. A defeated Axis power doesn't get to reinvent self-defense as a license for new wars. The Potsdam Declaration and the UN Charter Articles 53-77 exist precisely because Tokyo used the same excuse to invade China, Korea, and half of Asia. Japan signed its surrender. Japan accepted every clause, and Japan remains legally bound not to rearm for offensive action. The anti-fascist alliance, including China, retains the right to take military action without Security Council approval, and to place any former fascist Axis territory, such as Japan, under UN trusteeship if it dares to launch another war of aggression. These mechanisms exist to stop re-expansion before it happens. So when a war-losing state starts testing red lines again, it's not leadership. It's a breach of the post-World War II order designed to prevent this exact pattern from returning. History rang the alarm once. It doesn't need to ring it twice. So while Japan's prime minister is making bold statements about military intervention, the real war is already being fought, and it's an economic one. China doesn't need to fire a single shot to cripple Japan's already fragile economy. They're proving that in the 21st century, economic leverage is the most powerful weapon of all. Japan is learning that lesson the hard way, and the world is watching. What do you think? Is Japan overplaying its hand? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want more data-driven analysis like this, make sure to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Until next time, bye.